Kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. My name's Bridget Snelling and I am the country manager for Xero here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. I've been hearing a lot of negative stuff recently from businesses about how hard things are. And there's no doubt that with high interest rates and inflation and declining sales, that things have been pretty tough for our small business economy. But I am also reminded when I speak to small businesses how incredible they all are. And I love hearing the stories of success that they have to share. And so I wanted to do something positive to change the rhetoric in our country. I'm really excited to have my first guest today, Maree Glading. Thank you so much for joining me, Maree. It's so cool to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Maree, tell us a little bit about you. I think you and I could talk for hours. I just love hearing about your business, but I know that we want this to be a power chat. So we'll try to stay on point a little bit. But to start off with, just tell us a bit about your career and what you do.
Yeah, I guess at this point you could say I'm a serial entrepreneur. I co-founded a business in 2008 called I Love Food Co. and we made I Love Pies. And
I love them.
Yeah, it was a dangerous business.
Yeah, sausage rolls, yum.
We were stocked in all the supermarkets in New Zealand and we exported to China and Southeast Asia and Australia. In fact, we were one of Xero's first 50 customers.
I love that. I remember you telling me that, and that is so awesome. Roduri, I hope you are listening.
Yes, I met him at a trade show at the ASB Stadium and thought, this looks interesting. I'll give it a go.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, been using it ever since. So after I exited that business, I founded a ethical natural teen skincare company called Evre. We sell online and we are also stocked nationwide in farmers. And I'm also I've launched in the US.
So I absolutely love this because as the mother of a 10-year-old going on 11 tween, I can tell you that the skincare battle is real. And so having an ethically sourced and sustainable and actually natural skincare product for girls, as well as obviously women like us, is amazing. So I want to talk more about your product. But before we do that, I want to know, because the whole point of this chat really is to celebrate success, and you have such an awesome story. How do you celebrate success? So what are some of the highs that you've been through with Evre in recent times?
Well, I think it's really important to celebrate success, be it big or small, because you also don't know what's around the corner. You don't know, are you going to have a down day? So it's important to embrace those good days. So for me, the small things are really important. So it could be like a mum who's written to say, hey, I've really enjoyed the recent blog that you put out. I learned a lot and it helped me navigate something that I'm going through with my teen. Or a teen writes to us and says, hey, you've really helped our skin. Yeah. And that it's the small things that really make it worthwhile. I mean, of course, I love the big wins, like when you get into a big retailer, things like that.
So, you've said that obviously really important to celebrate success along the way, the big wins or the small wins, because, being a small business owner is really tough. And on that point, let's do a quick fire question in about 30 seconds, try and sum it up. Because people think about getting into business and, there are lots of reasons why they think, oh my God, it's way too hard working for myself. So what are 3 reasons that you think working for yourself and running a small business is so amazing?
Yeah, I mean, I think for myself, I'm probably at this point unemployable. So I have no choice but to have my own business. But the reasons I love having my own business is first and foremost autonomy and being in control of your own destiny, working with the people you want to work with, making your own decisions, creating a culture that you actually want to be a part of and driving that culture, because I believe culture does come from the top.
Yeah.
Also, creating a purpose-led business is really important to me. And whilst, being in business is about creating wealth for yourself and your family, it's also about improving the community that you operate in, or at least that's what I believe.
Yeah, no, I love all of that. I think that's incredibly important and extremely appealing, to be honest. Sounds amazing. But it's obviously not all fantastic. And something we do hear a lot about at Xero is that small businesses struggle with getting paid on time. So the cash flow crunch and late payments is a really big deal in our country. So what's your experience been like with being paid on time? Obviously, part of your business is B2C, and so that's probably slightly different. But what's your experience been in terms of invoicing and payments?
Yeah, well, I think the great thing about this business I'm in now is I've had a lot of learnings along the way from my past business, and there's some things that I've put in place to help mitigate that.
Yeah.
At the moment, I think I'm quite lucky because 40% of my business is D2C, so I am getting payment up front, and 60% is wholesale. And I probably have a handful of wholesale customers, but one big retailer, which is Farmers. In the past, when I got burnt with my last business, where large companies went into liquidation. So my tips are get trading terms.
Yeah.
If it's a smaller company that you're a bit unsure of, start off with payment up front and really manage that really closely, and then slowly give them more terms as they prove themselves, and just keep on your debtors list, like keep on it. So the moment it slips, be that, I call it the squeaky wheel that gets the oil.
Yeah.
You have to be reminding them, and don't be embarrassed. Like when I first started my business, I was like, oh my gosh, debt collecting. Oh, I don't want to ask people. But now I'm like, hey, you haven't paid. And sometimes it's an innocent mistake. And other times, they're deliberately not paying you because you're not the squeaky wheel.
But how easy is that? Because I imagine, you said before about making sure you get payment terms up front. But if you're a small business starting out, like for example, with I Love Pies, and you're trying to get into the supermarkets, how much kind of negotiating power do you have when you're a small business, when you're dealing with big ones? Yeah.
None. So when you're dealing with the big companies, you have no negotiating power. But what you do have is pretty good certainty that they're going to pay you, and that's what's amazing about these large retailers. It's the mid-sized ones that I think can be a little bit of a risk because they're more likely to go into liquidation and owe
having
you a lot
cash
of
flow
money.
issues themselves probably,
Yes.
and then that's that whole chain of cash flow issues through the economy.
And then the really small ones, very, very high risk, and that's when I recommend payment up front.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So obviously you've said you've had some good success recently with being paid and having a good supplier. Any supplier, or distributor in particular, or retailer you want to shout out as part of this?
Well, definitely Farmers. It's a New Zealand institution. It's a family-run business. They have a lot of New Zealand brands, and they do always pay me on time. So
that's awesome.
That has really helped me during this time, and I really appreciate that.
So obviously we talked before about why it's great to work for yourself and be in business, but what are some of the challenges? What are some of the difficult times you've had? Because obviously we're focusing on success, but the reality is it's not easy to work for yourself and run a small business. So talk to me about that. What are some of the challenges?
I think one of the challenges for me personally is in this business I'm on my own, and you do get decision fatigue, and you sometimes doubt yourself, and when you have to put money in, it's just you putting money in. So for me, it's really important to surround myself with really good people that I can rely on, that I can talk to, bounce ideas off, and also form really good relationships with people who might be that I'm lacking in skills in. So, I'm very close to my accountant. I'm very...
Perfect.
Yes, like people like that who can give you some really good advice, especially around managing your finances.
Yeah, well, it's really tough. And I think obviously accountants and bookkeepers are fantastic advisors when you are on your own, because like you've said, and when I hear this all the time, it's really lonely being in business, decision fatigue, bearing all the risk yourself. So it is important to have those advisors. So what would be your advice to businesses out there that are having a pretty tough time at the moment in terms of things that they can do to support themselves, or where to go to get support?
Yeah, I think there's lots of great organisations out there. If you're exporting, New Zealand Trade and Enterprise is amazing. Of course, Xero has lots of great information. Your bank also has lots of great information. There's also lots of good incubators out there like Soda and Ministry of Awesome. You can rely on them. Also, what I find the most rewarding is talking to other businesses, other business owners. So people who at a similar stage as you, facing similar challenges, maybe selling in the same industry, and bouncing ideas off them. Because I think now is the time to learn what's happening now. And often you can go to someone who's really wise and really experienced, but what got them to where they are isn't what's going to get you to where you are.
Yeah, so, different time,
So talk to people in your peer group, and I think that's where you're going to get the most amount of learnings.
And what's that network like in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in the beauty industry, for example? Have you found it easy to connect with others?
Yes and no. I think on the whole, we tend to be quite helpful, but sometimes I think we can look at New Zealand as this, like we're all competing for this small pond, and it's like, well, actually the world is really, really big, and we're better together, and it doesn't seem to make any sense that we're both going out there trying to solve these problems.
Yeah, totally.
And I'm a very open and sharing person, so I'm like happy to share with you what I've learned, but I'd like, if you can reciprocate, that's great.
Share learnings with you as well.
Yes.
That makes sense. I mean, we have got a small country, so I think having that global view and obviously global ambition is something to be commended. And we do hear a lot about that for small businesses. And it's not for everyone. Not everyone wants to grow, but for those who do, trying to break into those markets, it can be tough. And so working with New Zealand Trade Enterprise or others who have done it before is obviously really helpful. So in terms of other people wanting to start a business, what would you say to them? Because you've done it a couple of times now, serial entrepreneur. What would be some advice you'd give to someone who's got an idea, but they're kind of not sure where to start?
Yeah. First of all, I have this thing, I call it my 3 Ps. You have to have a problem, and you have to understand how you're going to solve that problem. I think the second thing is you have to be passionate about the product or the industry or the problem that you're trying to solve, because you have some dark days and that's what's going to get you through.
Yeah.
And then also, this is more my thing, but I think it needs to have a purpose. And again, that's to get you through more than just generating wealth. So problem, passion, and purpose.
I love that. And you're right about passion. I think, well, it's true for anyone in any job. I think if you're not passionate, it makes it hard to get up every day. But particularly when, like you say, you're kind of on your own quite a lot of the time, you need something to get you through it and keep going. So that's really cool. Now, coming back to Evre, I just want to understand, what was the genesis for this idea?
Oh, well, it ticked a lot of boxes for me around purpose, passion, and problem. And when we talk about the problem, at the time, my daughter was 12 years old. I went shopping for some skincare for her.
Yeah.
And she either was using cheap and nasty stuff with questionable ingredients made in questionable countries, or she wanted really expensive skincare.
Drunk elephant.
Yes. that I wasn't even using for my own skin because it was so expensive, but with actives that she shouldn't have. And then I also saw her and her friends making TikToks with some brands like Cetaphil and Burt's Bees, and I was like, they're quite medicinal looking, and they look like brands I used when I was a teen. Surely we've moved on. And that's really when I struck upon this problem, was like, how can I create a brand that mum just goes, tick, I feel good about that. As a parent, we have so much to navigate and so much to learn about. Are you really going to sit there and learn, should my teen use hydrochloric acid on their face?
Yeah, totally. I know it's just a minefield, a nightmare.
Yeah.
And there's all these articles about what they shouldn't use, and it's all they want to use. So that's why I love that it is such a problem, and you're really nailing it. And in terms of what's next for Evre, obviously, like you've talked before about global ambition, but anything you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think the current economy really prompted me to look further afield quicker than what I probably would have.
Yeah. And do you mean post-COVID or just the recession?
Well, I launched the brand just out of COVID.
Right.
And gaining traction here can be challenging at times because I feel like we have been impacted more by the recession.
Yeah.
So I was like, fish where the fish are. I'm going to look to international waters, and I decided upon the US as just being a really large market that has a bigger market of those premium shoppers, more likely to use skincare from a younger age, more likely to spend more money on products that do more, that have more ethical and natural attributes.
Yeah. And what about, so I'm building a brand these days. Obviously, my background is marketing, and it's just things are changing so rapidly. And we are in the TikTok, generation where I feel like my kids are constantly telling me about things that they've learned on TikTok, even though officially they're not supposed to have it, but somehow they still see it.
Yeah.
So are you on TikTok?
Yes, I am.
And are you on TikTok yourself?
I am. At first I was like, no one wants to see an old lady.
But definitely not that old.
But actually, there's this big thing called employee-generated content now that's trending, and people want to see behind the scenes. They want to see an authentic person with a real story, and they want to understand, what you do every day and why you make the decisions that you do. And I have some great young people who work with me and really inspire me and really understand the category and the social media platforms and help me in that area. So.
Oh, well, I'm going to have to check you out on TikTok now. Hey, and another question for others wanting to grow their business, raising capital. That is something that is tough, right? It can be really hard, and particularly, I think, in our country compared to others. What's your experience been?
Oh, so tough.
Yeah.
In my first business, I was really, really lucky. We started it with $3,000 and grew it to like a $15 million business without any capital. And
wow, you don't hear that. That doesn't happen often.
And I didn't actually realize how lucky we were because we were making to order in the beginning. So we were cash flow positive.
Yeah. And
all of a sudden, I'm having these huge MOQs that I have to order, lots and lots of packaging up front. Especially when you want to go into a market like the US, you need to really build your stock. So I did go out and I tried to capital raise, and it's really, really tough. And in New Zealand, we don't have a lot of VCs. We don't have a lot of private equity. We're very focused on tech mainly, not on CPG. And that was tough for me there because people have their thesis, and if you don't meet their thesis, which is fair enough,
then they
even they say, we love your product, we love you, we love the idea, we love where you're going, but, it doesn't meet our thesis. So I started to look offshore and started trying to raise capital over there, and I was getting some really good traction, but I've managed to raise now, and it's happy days.
But a lot of hard work. I can imagine.
A lot of hard work.
Traipsing around, trying to get the cash to support your business.
Yeah, and it's hard when you want to focus just on your business and not on that. But I guess it's the reality now as part of being a business owner that you have to get good at this as well. And I did enjoy it from the point of view I like telling a story. I like forming relationships.
Yeah.
I like the sales aspect of it.
Yeah, but it's hard, isn't it? Because lots of businesses, you think, they are born from someone being really good at something, and then there's all this other stuff that they have to get good at on top, which is actually the running of the business. And that actually brings me to my next question, which is around digitalization. So we have this productivity problem in our country. We've got all this research that backs it up. Aotearoa falls behind global digitalization rankings quite significantly. I think we're sitting at 25th out of 63 in kind of the latest poll. And something that I'm really passionate about is helping small businesses become more productive by using technology. There are obviously, AI, everyone's talking about AI, but it's more than AI. But there are lots of tools that can help small businesses and large businesses become more efficient. And so I just want to understand, what do you incorporate into your day? How do you use digital tools? Because obviously, I think it's just you and maybe a couple of contractors. It's not like you've got an army of people. How do you get your stuff done?
Yeah. So interesting you asked this question because I was just reflecting on this the other day, thinking when I was in Pies, if I had access to all the platforms and software that I do now, I wouldn't have needed as many people. So it's amazing from that point of view, and it's amazing what you're able to achieve by utilizing your tech properly. So of course I use Xero, I use Unleash for my ERP, I have Shopify, and it's really important that when you're looking at your tech that everything is talking to each other.
Totally, yeah.
And it is worth investing and spending that money. I think sometimes you go, it's $50 a month or whatever it might be, but it's saving you so much time. It's stopping you from making errors. It's getting you more efficient, and also just accuracy of information that you're going to have.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
Everything. But I just look and think, wow, what I'm able to achieve with a very, very small team is amazing. And I could not have done that 10 years ago.
That's the amazing advancement of technology, right? If used properly, it can actually help us all be so much more efficient and productive, which I love. Hey, my last question for you, and obviously you've talked about purpose, so it's obviously something you're really passionate about. What impact do you hope to have on the world through the mahi that you're doing, through Evre? It's a big question.
Yeah, big question. So When Evre was developed, it was the middle of the pandemic. And whilst the pandemic was terrible for everyone and everyone was impacted, I felt the worst for young people. Like 2 to 3 years in my life is terrible, but 2 to 3 years in a young person's life is their teenage years.
100%.
And can you imagine not going to a school ball, not having your first kiss, not playing sports, instead you're stuck home with your parents?
I know.
As beautiful and wonderful a country as it is to grow up in, we have the highest youth suicide rates in the world. And that's simply not acceptable. And I met with Youthline actually yesterday, and they've seen incidences of people phoning them increase by 45% in the last year alone. And our youth are our future. They're our future parents. They're our future workforce.
Yeah.
And it's so important that we look after them now and help them and give them the tools that they need. And I don't think for 1 minute a moisturiser is going to solve all your mental health problems. But I do think that it's a legitimate platform as a brand to start talking about mental health and well-being and tools that you can use and educating people around that. So we have a policy that a third of all our content has to be around self-care or mental health education. We give back 2% of all sales to youth mental health charities in the countries that we operate in. So in New Zealand, we work with Youthline. It's really, really important to me, and I think there's a really lovely synergy there with our brand as well. And so for me, I want to see an improvement in that space, and that's really what I want this brand to try and achieve.
That is so awesome. And as a mother of girls, I applaud you, because I think that's an incredible purpose that goes along with your brand. So I have loved this chat, Maree. Thank you so much for joining me for a power chat to celebrate business success. I wish you all the best with Evre. I know you're going to dominate the world. Thanks so much for being my debut guest on this podcast chat.
Well, you're a natural. Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
Thanks so much. Cheers.